Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Perfecto. Make you a few of some co-hosts. Awesome.
Question for you, Jared. Are we going to learn how to present an offer?
Uh, yes, yes, absolutely. We can, if we don't have any leads to call, we can talk about that today, actually, if you want.
Oh, okay. That worked.
I think a good subject to talk about, right?
Yes.
Hey, Jared.
Hey, Jamie.
Okay, let's get this show on the road. Okay, so tomorrow is the door knocking bonanza, and so we're gonna do it in Lehigh. The address has been updated, but let me put it in the chat too. Hopefully it's not funky like it was last time as far as address goes, but let's take a look here. Yeah. Mm. It's the Ivory Ridge Park is what it is. Park. Let's see. Oh, actually, it might be a different address. Hang on. I think because it's just so big it gets, or the parks is big enough where it's. Oh, that's not right either. No, that's not right. Yeah, that first address to work. Okay, we're good. Okay, so who's planning to make it tomorrow? Jesus, awesome. Yeah,
I will be there.
you'll be there. Yeah, like I say, you, Bruce, but definitely better be there. It's your backyard. Well, close enough, I guess.
What was that?
That is close enough to your backyard.
Right.
Over.
And Jared
I
will be
was,
down.
I was going to
We'll
say
be
it's
down in the morning.
Nice.
my front yard.
Oh,
And if Lara's coming in from Idaho, man, I don't have any excuse.
yeah, exactly. There's zero excuses. And Laura and Carl have been a majority of the bonanzas. There's a couple they missed, but they've been there. Knocking on doors. It's awesome to see them there. So, traveling from Idaho, for those who don't know. So it's like when you're like, oh man, I want to drive 20 minutes to Lehigh or depending where you're at, like, or even like I'm in Tooele. So I guess Bryce would have a little bit further drive than most because he's in Stansbury, but or Stockton, but still. Okay, cool. Uh, do we have any questions that we can table or even leads that we want to call? I kind of put it today as far as like if you guys want to need help like calling actual leads. Or we can talk about what Laura asked about as far as like how do you present an offer? Like what do you need? How do you do it? I think that's a great subject we can talk about. What do you guys thought? What's the consensus?
What I would love to incorporate what Laura said, and maybe, um, maybe you could do like a role play thing with her and also answer her question at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I complicate things sometimes, so maybe that's a bad idea.
No. Yeah, I like that. We do a little bit of role playing. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Like
You have thoughts?
around the what she's talking about though. You know what I mean? Like yeah.
Presenting the offer, right?
Yeah.
What you were saying? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Let's talk about the basics of the negotiations just in general. So like when you're presenting the offer, when I'm talking to a seller, uh it's usually anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half is that conversation. So it's not necessarily a really short conversation. Typically you want to find out a lot more. And so it's what we talked about yesterday, where it's like you should be speaking 80% of the, or excuse me, reverse that. You should be only speaking in the entire like time 20% of the time. Like that's the most. And then they should be the other 80% should be on them. They should be answering the question. They should be telling you what's going on, their scenario, whatever challenges they're facing, how we can help them, all of that stuff. So they should be spilling the beans of what their situation, right? Because we can just shout out a number and depending on the circumstances, I've done stuff like that. But the most effective way I find is going to be discovery. So the first part of negotiations, just in general, as presenting the offer, and this is the most important part, is the discovery. So we need to discover what's really behind their pain points, what's really behind why do they really want to sell? Why do they really need $100,000 in equity? Do they really need to sell at this time frame? Do they have all of the fine points and trying to get lower than deeper than surface level? That's what the discovery portion of it is. And the actual presenting the offer is literally just like 5 minutes of that, of the very end. It's like just present the offer and then overcoming any objections, and then maybe going into different as far as like creative financing or other options. So then just like the cash offer. Does that make sense, guys? Because it's important. It's like we need to find out what their deal is first, right? That is huge. That and because we don't know, and we need to go into it with the mindset like I don't know if I can help this person or not, and I don't need this deal. I'm gonna get my deal. It may be with this person or maybe with someone else. I don't know, but it's definitely gonna happen. And so when you have the mentality of disattachment of the result, you come across a lot. You come across disattached one, and if it doesn't work out, then like you become the prize at that point too, right? When you're disattached from the result, and that can be very very challenging when you've been knocking on doors and you've been working so hard, you've been training and you really need that deal, you know. Um, I've been in scenarios, especially where it's like done a ton of deals, and especially when I was like kind of getting things rolling, just and doing this full time. I've been in positions where it's like I've done like 2 3 deals, and then like the next 3 months like nothing, and so that's like I mean like I don't have residual income, so like I really needed that person to say yes to me, like and it took me a minute, but it was like okay, that's coming. My commission breath is very apparent, so that really pushes people away, and that's what the typical investor, the typical salesperson, how they react is just like I need the sell. What can I do for you? Let me pressure you into it. Let's get this thing under contract. Versus like I mean I may not even be able to help you. I don't know. Let's find out. I mean why would I why would you want me to buy your house anyways? And so they're qualifying to you why you should buy their house. Before you even get into price point or anything like that at all. Like that's why it's really important to kind of have that mindset. And sometimes you need to. The easiest way to do it, as far as like help yourself into that type of mindset, is like I said before. Try to have that like mantra, like I'm getting my deal. I don't know if it's gonna be this one or the next one, but it's already there. It's happened, and you're gonna come across a way differently. Okay, so that's important. to have those type of that mindset. Does that make sense, guys? Right? It's crucial, and they're in as part of that discovery phase. And this is like presenting an offer. That's easy, but your presentation of that offer is only as good as the discovery you've done previously. If you don't really know exactly what their deal is, what their problem is, what their challenges, what their goals are, what they want to accomplish, then your offer is only going to be, if we only have surface level answers like, oh yeah, because I lost my job, I need to, that's what we need to sell. We don't want to lose the house, or we don't want to lose all the equity or whatever. Like, okay, cool. And if you give your offer based off of just that surface level, it's going to be a surface level offer, and they're just going to see the number, and if the number doesn't make sense, they're not going to do it. Versus making the offer attached to what their core challenge is and what their core goal is, what they're trying to run towards. If you anchor it into those things, it's not going to be about the number. It's going to be about these problems being solved. And so the number is irrelevant at that point. This is how you get people to be ecstatic about taking a $150,000 haircut off for their asking price. Because it makes sense here. Because it fixes their problem, their real problem. And the thing is, a lot of times people don't understand the amount of poop that they're in. Sometimes people just get bad luck and they're very like they're conscious of kind of where they're at. They know they're going to lose the house can be lost, what that means to them. But a lot of people, for some people, when they get into situations, if it's, and this is not everyone that's in this type of situation, sometimes this is bad luck, but a lot of times they're in, if it's like for a foreclosure instance, they're in that situation for a reason. Sometimes it's just life challenges that come up against them, right? But a lot of them like this is not their first foreclosure. This is not their first notice of default. That it's just kind of it's getting pushed off, or they maybe try to get refinanced or whatever. And so like they're kind of used to making these not great decisions, and so not really like just assuming that some magical thing is gonna fix the problem, so they're not really worried. But then when it comes down to like, yeah, next week's the auction. What happens after the auction? What's going down? What's gonna be? How's that gonna make, what does that look like? And so sometimes like building that gap from where they want to be and where they're at, that's what you want to do. That's what those questions are going to kind of, that's the questions you want to do. So one, they understand their actual challenge. Like the guy with Jenny we talked with a couple days ago, he thinks he can do all of this stuff in 2 weeks. So I mean, and again, I failed as far as like really showing him the gap as far as what that really kind of looks like by asking deeper questions, to be honest. Which is another point too. Like you don't have to be perfect in all this stuff, guys. You're not gonna, you're gonna feel like I should have asked different questions. I should have asked more about that one thing they mentioned. And that's okay. And you can still get things under contract even if you're not perfect. So that's something I want everyone to know. Like you're gonna mess up and you're still gonna get stuff under contract and it's still gonna be a good deal. And you're a mess up and maybe it would have been a good deal, but then, maybe it just didn't happen because I should have asked this. That's probably gonna happen too, but that's okay. Cause you're just gonna be closer. You're gonna remember that stuff. You're gonna like, okay, yeah, now I know not to do this. So I'm gonna do this. Rachel, did you have a question?
Just want for clarification, when you ask them, so the auction is next week. What's going to happen? What you're kind of asking, what do you know about, or what you're asking? Sorry. So anyways, when you ask about that, what you're trying to do is get them to give you want to know what their level of understanding is. If they'll be like, I don't know, I guess they're going to have an auction. And then after that, maybe in a few months, somebody will be moving in, or you're trying to understand what they understand, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Sorry.
Right.
Thank you.
No, that's a great question. That's a great question. And again, you guys heard me say this many times. Like if I say it, we say it, it's wrong. If they say it, it's right. Right. So you want them to say certain certain things or about their situation, um, to help them. So that then it's like more like it's kind of hard to argue something that they already said, right? That they're like, yeah, I would lose my house, or like versus like, yeah, dude, you're gonna lose your house. You mean out in the street? And like, well, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm sure there's some other solution, but if they say, yeah, I'll probably be like out in the street. I have to live with my mother-in-law or whatever. And like, oh yeah, I guess that would happen, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's right. It means dramatically different. They trust themselves more than you, rightfully so. Right. So those are the type of questions you're like your or the goal you're trying to get to, right? You trying to get below service level. Like what the auction happens, what does that mean? What does that really mean? Like how's it gonna affect you? And so that's huge, right? We're gonna say something else or
Could you say anything like if they maybe you find out they don't really know like the answer I gave, could you then say, or at some point would you say anything like well, when the auction happens, do you know where you're going to stay? Like are
Mhm.
you telling them if you say that?
No, yeah. So like another way of kind of like paint it so it's like you're not telling them. You can tell stories of other people's situation. That's another great way, and Dane Clark is really good at this too. Those who have the pleasure of knowing who he is, he's really good at telling stories about the situation. And one, it's like you're not saying because there is some like as far as like credit goes and like how long it's going to affect their credit, they probably don't know that. And but you are not a credit expert. You are not licensed in any of that type of form. So I don't want to give them legal or financial advice, but I can sure as heck tell them that I know someone that went through foreclosure and it was on their credit for like 7 years. It was really hard time for them to get the next house because they had that foreclosure on their credit. Are you worried about anything like that? Is that anything that might concern you, or you're just happy, renting? Um, Stuff like that, right? So even if they don't know what the actual answer is, so no matter what questions you ask, they're like, oh, then yeah, then tell them the story and then ask them, hitting them with a question about that, right? Um, and even if you don't know someone that's gone through, like I've heard someone was talking about like I've heard I know someone, those type of phrases, um, and it's not like directed at them, right? So they don't feel attacked either. So it's like, oh yeah, so you're gonna have if this goes to foreclosure, it's gonna be on your credit for like 7 years. Like, well, what do you know? You're like, what do you know what I mean? Because they're already kind of in a defensive position sometimes already. So it softens the blow, and then they can kind of internalize it a little bit on their own. So stories is phenomenal way of explaining things, and then follow it up with a question. Okay. Uh, the there's we talked about different type of strategies on negotiations and how to pull out the information that you want them to talk about. So we all talked with so mirroring is a big part of the discovery process, right? So when I sit down for an appointment, usually we'll walk through the entire place, and this is part of the discovery too. So it's if you're in the property itself, there's a walkthrough. Okay, and I do that just before we sit down to talk about numbers, anything like that at all. The walkthrough is nice because it's allows to kind of build not necessarily a rapport, but it does allow build kind of like, okay, they're showing you things, and then they're just in your presence a little bit longer before we get into the personal stuff, so they're a little bit more comfortable. The temperature's risen a little bit. Okay. Um, when you're walking through a property, this is part of the discovery too, right? For them, they've lived in this property for past 20 years or 5 years or whatever. Everything that you're seeing is normal. Or maybe it's like a probate and it's like their grandma lived there. And so, but this is their grandma home. This is normal for my grandma. Maybe their house is worse than their grandma's house, right? Um, and so this is where you kind of want to have, again, if you go in there saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to replace this kitchen, that's a terrible kitchen. We're gonna have to do this. Oh yeah, that's I can't believe people lived in this place. I've heard people say that in front of the person who lives there. Like, yeah, exactly. Like yeah, that didn't end well, to say the least, but it's okay. You don't know what you don't know. So, oh crap, I forgot to hit the record button. Okay. Anyways, so with negotiations and discovery. Oh, anyways, so the walkthrough, and as you're walking through, you can be looking at a kitchen, and you guys heard me the questions you're asking like on the phone, like when was the last time you updated this kitchen? Like that's a great question instead of like what's the condition of the kitchen, right? It's just you're gonna get a lot better answer, and then they're gonna kind of realize like, oh crap, yeah, it's been like 20 years and no updates has ever happened to this kitchen. And so you can ask those same type of questions, like where there's like, okay, yeah, this is a beautiful kitchen. When was the last time you updated this? And everything is great. And there's also something called the pendulum effect. Everything is great, or whatever you say, they're going to kind of go towards the opposite side of it. So if I say this house is phenomenal, why would you ever want to sell it? Well, actually, I mean, this house isn't all that great. Did you see that hole in the roof? And then we have this, and this. Versus like, oh yeah, I can see definitely why you want to sell this place. This is a dump. Well, it's not that bad. I mean, yeah, we sure there's some challenges, but yeah, I've been my kids have been playing here, and this is really we just and they're very proud of their DIY projects. That is just terrible. Oh yeah, we put in the new flooring 3 years ago, and it's halfway done in different tiles, whatever. But that's the pendulum effect, right? So it's like, this is great. Why would again, they're telling you why this is not a good condition, right? So it's the opposite of whatever you say, they're going to go the opposite, just naturally. It's human, okay? And so you're asking this question like, oh, this is, yeah, I like this kitchen, like it's quaint, when's the last time you guys updated this kitchen? And so you ask them right there in front of them, like, oh, well, yeah, we never have. Oh, okay, and you've lived here for 20 years, right? Okay, got it. And then you write something down in your notebook. Your notebook is going to be a very powerful tool in negotiations while you're presenting your offer. Because one, when I first started this, I would write down, I would itemize all the stuff that would have to happen. So go to Renaissance West, put it in the house, and just assume it's like a basic gut job. And I just put in because Renaissance West will give you line items of the rehab stuff. And so I just write down each of those line items and how much they would cost. And so like if kitchen was like they just updated it, 2 months ago, and they did a great job. Like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna scratch out that item. And like, oh yeah, that bathroom, or the roof looks great. Yeah, the phenomenal. I'm gonna scratch that off. Or like, yeah, this definitely needs paint. So we're leaving that. And so I'm like scratching things off, and then I can kind of at the end can minus those repairs that I don't need to do, and then that can increase my max offer at the same time. Okay. So so as you're walking, and then as and the walkthrough too, if you see something, for example, it's like you see water damage on the ceiling. You don't want to say, oh yeah, that's water damage. That's terrible. Oh yeah, that's going to be expensive to fix. Instead it's, huh, tell me about that. What's with that? And just be curious. Like, what is that? That's interesting. Like, tell me about that. What's the deal with that? Or like the outlets are outdated. Like, tell me about these outlets. I haven't seen a two-prong outlet in a long time. I'm curious. Like, oh yeah, well, it's really, really old. Like, oh, okay. So like, it's never been updated, the electrical? Oh, okay. And then you make a little fake note in your or roll note, whatever, and on your board, right? Does that make sense, guys? So that's the stuff you're kind of walking through, and it's non-confidential. It's like, oh, I'm just there's no, oh, what happened to this door? Where's the door go? Or like, I love how they're like, this is, you can even like independent like, oh, I love how this house, there's no door here, so it's like easy to in and out, right? And like, yeah, well, and then they'll start telling you why there's no door there, for an example, you know. Um, Tell me about this furnace. Yeah, I mean, it seems like, sturdy. If like back in the day when they used to make these, just those little comments like that. And so this is like spreading seeds of like this is because again, they don't understand they don't know what they don't know. This is not their business of fixing up houses, and they don't. That's just not what they're into typically, right? Unless they're like a contractor or whatever. But then, so we're building that gap of where they want to be and where they're actually at, so they can see like, oh crap, yeah, I am nowhere near. This is not a house that just needs $10,000 in repairs, right? So now we've been through the walkthrough. Any questions on that, like specifically the walkthrough? What kind of questions do we ask, or what should we be looking forward to? Um, my typical thing is like, and because sometimes houses, what do you call it? The layout's kind of funky. So I got this from Mitch as like the right hand rule, where you basically kind of almost put your shoulder. You don't really, but like as if you're putting your shoulder to the right side of the room, and you're just kind of just going in circles through the doors, and then eventually it'll go through the entire house. Then you go upstairs and downstairs. So you don't want to miss a room because I've missed rooms altogether. Like I didn't even look at it. Like oh, there's 3 bathrooms in here. I only saw 2. Oh yeah, up there. Oh my bad. Let me go take a look at it real quick. I missed the entire rooms. So it is kind of nice, especially if there's a little funky layout. Just does that make sense what I'm saying? Like far as like the right hand rule, like as if, and you're looking at outlets, you're looking at cracks in the ceiling, looking at typical damage, those kind of things. The windows, if they're double paned or not. Um, and you ask even if they're like single pane windows. You can ask the question like, oh yeah, I love these older windows. These are awesome. Um, like just pointing out that it's an older single pane. Like I love how the single pane windows, they're really really pretty. I mean, does but does how's the energy bill with these bad boys? Those type of questions, right? So they're like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's they're like, oh crap, yeah, that's you're just putting those seeds that we're gonna have to replace those, right? Okay, so again, any questions in the walkthrough or anything? No, we're good. Okay. Now when we sit down and actually have a conversation, that's when we really kind of get into the nitty gritty as far as discovery. So now we kind of have we did the walkthrough. We have an idea as far as kind of rehab, what that's going to take, what this property needs. We're pointing out things to the seller in the curious manner, so they're less offended or whatnot. And this is where it's like one of the first questions, and this I get this from Brian Sump. And that's the beauty of just Renatus and all the educators. Like I love how Brian Sump like phrases certain things. So I'll like take this from his class, and then Chris Wilson, I'll take some of his sayings from this and this, and then from the other sales courses that I've gone through, then I take their stuff and I put it into, so I make my own little Jared negotiating ball that makes sense for me, and I'm constantly tweaking it. So you guys are gonna find your Rachel's negotiating ball. I'm gonna take some phrase that Jared used over here, and take Brian Sump and do this, and then Bruce is gonna make his ball, and Laura's gonna make her ball of like of how you negotiate your style, as Barry would put it, still like a ball. But so there's not like a wrong way, and you're gonna take the good and bad of all that stuff. But when you're watching classes, and you're listening to what I'm saying, like I like how they said it like that. I like how they wordsmith it this way. I like how Jay Massey put it this way. Those kind of things, right? So the first question I typically ask, like, just tell me about your situation, and then you shut up and you listen. Tell me about your situation. Tell me more about that. Those are key questions. Like, tell me about your situation. Well, I mean, we need to sell our house. I lost my job, whatever what it may be. Like, okay, tell me more about that. And at that point, you can also do the mirroring where we talked about this yesterday, right? Where you're mirroring the words, the key words, the important words, not just not just the last 3 words. So typically that's a good way to go. But either last 3 words or the key phrase that they said. And then the important thing is to shut up. That's the important thing of like when you're asking a question, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. When you're mirroring a phrase, and then you just shut up and look at them. And if they're still kind of quiet when you rephrase it, so like you lost your job, and you do a little bit of a head nod, and you're looking at them, and it's gonna, that's like a body language, like to kind of continue, right? And they'll continue. They'll keep on going, and they'll start saying, and then you can just start pulling stuff out, because they're going to tell you the surface level, right? And you're just pulling out information. That's where it comes from. Okay, you just want to find out more about what drives them, and then we need to find out, okay, so what is their pain point? And a good way for that is like, okay, great. So when do you need this property to sell, right? So we're finding out the whys, which is the most important, the time frame, and the amount. Okay, those are the biggest, other than the pain points of like, and the time frame, amount, and why, that covers the pain points too. So why do they need to sell? What does it mean? And as far as the pain point goes, what happens if they don't sell the property with me, or they can't find a solution to whatever their challenge is? So I'm just curious is a beautiful phrase. Everyone should write that down, get it tattooed on their arm, or whatever. And that it really lets people tell you stuff if you're curious. I mean, I'm just, so if you're feeling a little bit like that's really personal, whatever, and even there's many times I'm like, hey, if I'm asking a personal question at any time, just tell me to just tell the bald man to shut up, and I won't, you don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. That's a release statement. I mean, if you're not bald, then don't, maybe X out the bald part, but whatever, just tell me to shut up, and I won't, you don't have to tell me anything about this type of stuff. And 9 times 10, they have no problem telling, because you gave them the release statement. So if you start asking those, because I remember we talked about yesterday, like it removes that sales pressure of like, because they're feeling in a very vulnerable state, whether they're in foreclosure or not, because they know we're trying to get something out of them as far as they're concerned, and they think, so when you're giving like those release statements of like, yeah, if you don't want to tell me, that's fine. I'm not even sure if I can possibly even help you guys. That's why, can you tell me a little bit more about your situation? And they may say like, just give me another rebuttal is like, just give me your offer. Let me know how much you're going to pay my offer for my house. And he'd be like, yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to give you an offer. I need because the thing is, like, I'm not entirely sure if I can even possibly help you or not. That's why I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So when I do give you an offer, it makes sense, and so we're not wasting each other's time. Is that fair? And then, well, even saying that's fair, I probably wouldn't say that actually, not think about it, but like, and then to ask that, they start asking the questions, right? So the objection handling, handle the objection, answer the next question. Okay, so now we need to know what happens if they don't sell, and what happens when they do sell. What's the best scenario? So if, heaven forbid, I know we talked, the auction day is in 2 weeks, or like I know you're going through, the bank is not being helpful, and it sounds like they're going through the foreclosure process. Heaven forbid if we can't, help you with this challenge, and you're not able to get other help. What'll happen if the bank does foreclose on your property? You need your cadence and how you ask that question is important. On the speed that you ask it, the tone that you ask it is huge. So tell me, if you don't sell the property, what happens? Versus if you, so tell me, if you don't sell the property, what will happen? You guys see the difference? Like, it's almost the exact same words, but it's a complete different, like the tone and just the cadence, the beat of of what we're saying. And so it also allows them to think, to internalize. Because it's like,
show
well,
empathy.
what will happen to you guys and your family if the house does go to auction? So I emphasize the word family. And what happens to you if this does go to auction? And then you shut up, because that's the tough question to answer when it's about you. Let them process it and shut the heck up and let them answer. Okay. I learned this the hard way up, and it took me 100 times to figure it out. Okay. But you really just need them to sit there and just be there with them, present. This is the worst time of their life. Be present with them. And they will take your, if you are there, like emotionally there for them, they will take your offer, even if it's lower than someone that's given a higher offer, because they trust you. That's building rapport, not talking about the favorite sports team. That's BS. That's a salesperson tactic. It's talking about the sports, the sales team, talking about the weather, whatever. That's waste of time. Talking about what happens to them emotionally, what happens to them in their situation, and actually let them communicate that out, and being a place where they can talk about it, and that builds more rapport than any type of sports team you want to talk. I mean, I'm not necessarily just sports, but like, you know what I mean, the cliche-ish small talk, you build rapport things. It's most of it's all trash.
Yeah, you're going from superficial to realistic.
Exactly.
With empathy.
Exactly. 100%. So what'll happen if, heaven forbid, that this property actually does go through the foreclosure process? What happens to your family? So they're going to tell you, like, oh yeah, I would have to move in with my mother-in-law. Like, oh, with your in-laws? Yeah. And so this is a good opportunity to start mirroring, because you want more information, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I'm curious. Can you tell me a little more about that? So we said in-laws. What do you mean? Like, what does that mean when you move in in-laws? Are they super cool with that? I mean, and obviously they're not going to be super happy about the situation, right? So they're getting a little more pinpoint, like, and so then we say, like, after we have an idea of kind of what their situation is going to be like, they're going to have to move with in-laws. In this example, they're going to move with in-laws, and then another good question to ask: if you did have to move in with your wicked, whatever words they're saying, try to use that exact phrase that they're using. If you have to move in with the wicked mother-in-law, as you put it, what would, I mean, how would that make you feel? And ask them, what does that mean for you? How does that make you feel if you did have to move to in-laws? So now we're kind of getting more into the emotional side of things. Like, what does that make them feel if they lost it? What it makes them feel about, like for family members and things like that. And if you ask that in a concerned, like genuine tone, slow down your cadence and be present with them, and they're going to tell you how they feel. How would that make them feel? And like, what if, and if you didn't have to move in with your in-laws, what would that be like? Oh well, shoot, that'd be awesome. I mean, I wish and then you transition into, okay, so assuming that we come up with a perfect price that makes sense for you, makes sense for me, and we sell it, we stop the foreclosure, what would you guys end up doing? Well, we would rent an apartment, we would do this and this. And then again, that's the mirroring part. So we want to know the emotional, how would they make, so now we kind of, we put them into like a negative spot. Like we want them to sit with the whatever the pain point of where they're at. Okay. And so now we're like, okay, so what happens? Assuming, we're in fantasy makeup land, or makeup, fantasy land here just for a second. But assuming that we come up with a perfect price that makes sense for you and me, what what will you guys end up doing once you actually sell the property? And I mean, would you still move in with your in-law? I'm like, well, no, we would have enough money to rent that apartment or to pay off this debt or to do this, and this. Like, oh, great. So you would pay off that debt and rent an apartment and not have to live with the wicked mother-in-law. Like, what would that feel like if you didn't have to do that? Oh, it'd be amazing. I wouldn't have to hear her how much of a failure I am, blah blah blah, blah whatever they want to say, right? And so again, that this is a good opportunity for mirroring or asking, like, tell me more about that. What else? Those simple, like, short questions, as long as you shut up afterwards, they work great. The problem is that, and again, I still have challenges with this sometimes, right? And like, what else? And then I try to fill in examples what they could say is a bad habit that I still do sometimes, right? I'll start giving them a potential answer to their question or to my own question. Like, so what are you going to do when you sell the property? Are you going to get an apartment? Are you going to buy a new house? Like, no, I shouldn't say that. I should, what are you going to do when you sell this house? I should let them, I don't need to give them an out. They need to think that. So, but even if you do kind of fill in, like, give them options to say, because it's just naturally you want to make sure they understand, give them an idea where you want them to take it. But and sometimes you may have to coax them a little bit and give them some options if they're just flat face and like they barely have a heartbeat. You may have to do that, but you don't want to start it off that way. Does that make sense? So, nectar of the gods. Anyways, my heart stops a couple times a day. It's fine. No problem. Anyways,
Me over here is this former ER nurse, Jared.
yeah, it's not good. No bueno. Anyways, okay, so now we have a better understanding of what that makes feels, and like, you want to end it off on the high note of what happens when they do sell it. Okay, that's what you want to do. Let me make sure. Yeah, yep, exactly, Bruce. I think I think that's for a lot of people too, especially when it's in slightly awkward situations. It's really easy just to fill in, try to incline to add things to the question, right? And my intellectual, like, I'm third, so it's not even my top two, and I still do it. So I think it's up there, right? Perfect. So now we want them to have like an emotional, and you'll see, you hear it in the voice, you hear, and face to face, this is a lot easier to do. It really is, when you're face to face and having that connection for them to really get into the emotion, and then you can see, or this is another way, if you can do it on Zoom, even better. But you can see, like, in their countenance, in their face, like, oh, that would be great if I didn't have to worry about living with mother-in-law and I actually got, you can see in their face, and they're even on the phone, in their tone of the phone, like, oh, that'd be amazing. And whenever you hear like an emotional part, they may say, like, that'd be amazing, and then they trail off on something else, but they don't have that same emotional attachment to it. I would try to mirror that amazing part, because I want to hear more about that. Does that make sense? So if they're saying, like, oh yeah, if I was able to get my own apartment, then I wouldn't have to live in my mother-in-law's apartment, then I can pay off some debts. That'd be cool. Like, oh well, so it sounds like you're living in your own apartment is important to you. Another phrase too, guys, that you want to add into your repertoire. Again, this is like, these are just tools in your tool belt you need to have and practice on your husband, on your wife, on your kids. These are the things that you need to start implementing, like, in your daily lenguaje. So in your daily language, so that you can, when you are there in the situation, it's just more natural than anything else. So you need to practice this on your kids. Shout out to Rachel for practicing mirroring on her husband. Phenomenal. That's what you guys really need to be doing, is practicing with the loved ones, and they're not going to notice. Promise you. I promise you. And if they do notice, I'd rather have my wife notice than the seller notice. Like, oh, okay, I see. I laid it on a little too thick. You know what I mean? So that's it's huge, right? So once we get to that emotional state, so now that we know their pain point and there's the carrot and the stick. And again, guys, this is the same stuff we're doing here. We're in our MMAs. What are we trying to do? We're trying to create a carrot and a stick too with our reward and punishments, right? It's a carrot and a stick. It's the exact same thing. We are doing this and what's the goal of that? For us to take action. So now that we understand the seller's carrot and their stick, we can present the offer in a fashion that they'll make that will motivate them to take action emotionally, not just cognitively, not just because the numbers make sense, because they emotionally make sense. You heard that the old saying that people will buy on emotion and justify with logic. Okay, absolutely, that's the same thing, right? People will buy and sell just by emotion alone. So now that we know the pain points, now that we know their carrot, the things that they're running towards, right? The things that they want to happen. that's when we start. Okay, great. I have the information that I need, and sometimes there's always more deeper. You can always go, right? So kind of. But if they're willing to go, I mean, if they're going deeper, then yeah, let them go as deep as you want. But so what? This is another thing. If you're in person, I recommend having a notebook. I now have I have my big old my fat phone, and that has a pin on it, so I use my phone as my notebook. But having a notebook is nice, and this is part of the negotiations. Okay, have my notebook, and I'm writing. So like, because again, remember I talked about how during the walkthrough I already written down like what the costs are going to be, so written stuff out, and it's like, okay, I think I have a really a fair understanding of kind of what you guys going through. You know, I can sympathize and blah blah blah. And doing the walkthrough, it gives me a great idea. Can you just give me a minute or two? I got to do some math real fast, so I can give you an offer that's going to work. And even if you, so sometimes I'll spend a few moments just doing the math, and even if I already know what it is, I still take a beat on just I get my my calculator out and start doing some math and scratch my head. It's and this is a Jared thing, right? But it allows them to kind of sit with what we were talking about, and it's like it whatever offer I'm giving, it's like real. It's a real offer that I'm giving because I'm doing the math. They're seeing my scribbles on the paper. They're seeing like my line item stuff, some stuff I crossed out probably because they're gonna be looking, right? If I'm sitting across the table or on the couch, whatever, they're gonna try to sneak a peek or two. It's kind of rough idea, right? So you're doing the math, all that stuff, and then oh, great. Okay, I think I got something that possibly might work for you. It might not, but I have I think this is gonna be I think this might be great for you. Do you remember how you told me how so you really didn't words in whatever words however they phrase it, you want to use the same phrasing. You don't want to rephrase it. You want to use their words that they use. Remember how you were saying that if once if you don't sell this property to someone like me, you would end up having to move in with the evil witch and live in the basement and deal with her or bold bleep whatever. And that's just not something you're super excited about. So I have an offer, so we can actually stop the foreclosure. So that evil witch is not going to win and hold this over you for the rest of your life, like you were saying. The offer that I have right now, it's a cash offer, and it's $454,785.13 or 12 cents, 13 cents and 12 cents. So you said an entire number, and this is something that I'm not always spot on with sometimes because if the more detailed number, like down to the penny, like an offer, I've plenty of offers I made when they had like 12 cents, 50 cents in it in the offer. That's way different than 450,000 or 455,000 with $454,785.13. That's a way different offer than this 455,000. It's a real number. They saw you do the math. this and it almost eliminates their power to negotiate against that number because it's real to them. Because if I just drop down, hey, all right, we can give you 450,000. Well, what's the typical response? Well, maybe 475. And like, okay, 460, 470, 472, you know, that meet in the middle garbage. But if it's $454,785.12, it just feels different. Like it's a real number. It's hard to negotiate against that number. It really is. It's either like it's a yes or a no kind of thing. And so with that, so I give the number and I try not to miss too much of a beat after I give the number. Do you remember how you had this challenges? So this doesn't happen. This is my cash offer of X amount so that you can get that apartment that we were talking about. You would have enough money to pay off the loan of the house, and you had enough money for the moving expenses that you mentioned, and also pay off that $20,000 debt you were mentioning that you would feel relieved and just excited to start over anew, and we can close way before the closing time. Would you like to close on a Wednesday or a Friday? What would be best for you guys? That's a great way to ask if they want to take the offer or not. You guys want to close? So you get again, we put it in one spot. You remember how you said this, and this? This offer is going to stop that. This is the number, so that you get everything that you wanted, or at least to get those key points, those emotional points, and then you remind them of that emotional thing that they said. Right then and there. Would you want to close on a Thursday or Friday? What question do you guys have of this? I'm asking you guys, not. I know I was talking about role playing, but I really wanted to explain everything. And we can on Monday, we can squeeze in the role playing and doing an offer. I think that's not a bad idea. But at least you would have context from this call here. But what questions on that particular on just presenting the offer like that? Now that because again, like presenting the offer, it's like a 5-minute thing max. But this is after we've been talking to him for 40 minutes. Okay, so that's why it's a really, really important, really, really key to find out those anchor points of the pain and pleasure point. You're going to build so much rapport, it's insane. And even if they don't, maybe they just can't take your offer. Maybe it's just the cash offer is not gonna make any sense, right? And for lack of time, I'm not going to go and create financing offers. But a lot of times, like I'll give them a cash offer, and I'll even say like this may not work for you, like because you're saying this, and this, but this is the offer so that you can do, and I'll give them sandwich it in, and then you can talk about like I do have some other options or ideas where I could get you closer to what you were thinking. Would that be something to be open to? And then you start talking about creative financing at that point, which that's a whole nother conversation to have. Like that's another whole call is presenting creative financing as an offer. That's a whole nother thing. But just getting, you still have to find out the same basic stuff. But this is the fun part. It really is. Like and guys, as you get better and better at this, at first you're going to suck, but you have to like lean into the suck. That's okay. You're going to suck at first. You're not going to be as bad as you think, though. I promise you that. You're not going to be as bad as you think. You're still probably going to suck. It's okay. So you're going to mess up stuff, and then you'll be surprised as you're communicating. Like the relationship you have with this person is going to change. You're going to feel better with them. They're going to feel, they're going to embrace it. Yeah, see, Bruce gets it. You're going to have that. It's going to be a different type of a conversation you're having, and as you get better and better at it, it's like you're going to recognize those feelings and like those key points, and it's just going to become smoother and smoother and better as you put in those reps. So yeah, what questions do we have on this at all? What
You're saying that we should always be prepared to do basically a deal analysis on the spot. So we need to know a deal analysis in and out, right?
Not on the spot. Well, I mean, I've done that before, but so this is because the first contact, you haven't done any deal analysis, and that's just to set that appointment, right? So we're not going to waste our time analyzing any address until we've actually at least had a conversation with the seller,
I see. Okay.
right? So from that first, yes, actually, yeah, come to my house tomorrow at 5, and then we can talk about selling my house. Okay, great, awesome. From now until 5, we're going to do that deal analysis. So now we're going to have everything, and in it, because we're not in the property, so I don't know if it's going to be. And again, we can't necessarily trust. We ask them what the condition is. We can ask the questions like, when's the last thing updated, blah, 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 on the phone if you want to, and that gives you a rough idea. But I find it's better to assume it's a gut job, itemize things out, and then because then I have all my totals written down on my little notebook already. Because on Side West, even if it's just like the back of the napkin numbers that we did earlier this week, as far as analyzing the deal, have those numbers down. That's fine, right? And then as far as like closing costs and holding costs, all that stuff, and then it's just really the rehab amount is the only thing that's gonna vary and change throughout this process, right? So it's like that's where it's nice to okay, great. I'm not gonna have to do the kitchen. I'm not gonna have to do this, or like, oh wow, that kitchen, or like there's mold everywhere. I got to make sure that we're factoring that too. Or like I have a really good feeling there's some meth use in this property. We're gonna have to factor that in as a meth mitigation kind of thing. So that as far as numbers on the spot, even if the house is exactly as I expected, I most of the time I will. Let me see if I can. Let me run some numbers real fast, and I'll tell you how much we can offer. Okay, I will still do the let me do my math real fast and do even if even if for just like 30 seconds or so, whatever. I already know the answer, but I'm still going to do some fake math to let them sit with it for just a second. Does that make sense? To let them see that I'm giving them real number. It's kind of like a play, but it works. Like when I don't do it and do it, it's pretty good. Does that make sense, Laura? As far as like the on the spot. So the only thing on the spot is like maybe a little bit on the rehab, but if you prepped it before, like putting all the numbers down, you just scratch them off and then do it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
This
Oh, Frank,
offer.
you're not coming tomorrow? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna give Frank time because he's not gonna come to the Bonanza tomorrow. But yeah, go ahead, Rachel. What was it?
Okay, so I just want to make sure this. So the two questions, real quick. Number one is this first number that you're giving basically your get lucky no offer, and then the second question, if we can't get CMAs from a realtor, is it okay if if it's an kind of like a normal property, like not a lot of acreage or out in the country or
Right.
something like that. If it's just normal in a neighborhood, whatever, you can get your own comps from Zillow, Redfin, and whatnot, as long as they're just in the last 6 months, similar properties. That's okay to go in
Yes.
to use that instead of a whole. Okay.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
this is your first get lucky, no, or whatever. Sorry.
So I would say yes. That's my first. Okay, so I do things a little bit different than Dave. I will usually give them a cash offer that makes sense for me, and it's pretty close to my highest and best. It really is. Like well, even still, like it's a slam dunk deal if I get that number. Okay, but that's kind of pretty close to my. It's not a slam dunk. I mean, it's just cash deal. Like I want a really good deal. Does that
I
make
was going to
sense?
say it's closest to your highest and best without any use of creative financing. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So what I lean into, so like, so yes, it's the get lucky offer, right? But then I don't normally change the cash offer. It depends on the situation, right? But then okay, great. I can do higher, but it's going to be with creative financing. It's going to be, we're going to do this, and this. And so that's my, Goldilocks method for me, is the Goldilocks method. And again, like you're going to find stuff that which is great that Dave came out. He kind of explained how he does his. I don't think his ways doing it is wrong. I don't think the way I'm doing it is wrong either. Right. So it's just a matter of what makes sense for you. Like right now, maybe you're not super comfortable like pitching creative financing just yet. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to give you these 3 offers. Like here's my get lucky, And then, and here's the thing, as you're switching up the number, so you give them a real number, 454, let's say that's your get lucky number. If you have your highest and best offer, right, the middle one, then it's like, well, let me see. I mean, because you needed to do, and there's a reason why the price would have to go up. So like, because at your get lucky number, they're not going to have the $20,000 to pay off that debt they needed. And it's like, so if you were able to pay off that amount that you needed, that the extra $20,000, that would that make it something where you would be interested in taking an offer if you were able to have that taken care of for you? So maybe the initial offer only took care of like their moving expenses, for example. Or like, okay, so if you were able to get those moving expenses that you're really worried about, and into you have enough money for the first and second month's rent and deposit, but if you had that and then plus enough to pay off that truck you were talking to me about, would that be something that you'd be opposed to doing? Now it's like, okay, cool. If I have this, because now we anchored them lower, then it's like, okay, I and even if it's like, okay, great, they say yes, sweet, okay, we're gonna do that. Slow it down there, Jim. Slow it down. It's like, oh, okay, so that would increase the offer by at least 20,000. Even inside, you're like, yes, just play cool, play cool. Like, just give me 1 second here. Just it's really really tight, and it puts me in kind of a tough situation. But I feel for you guys. I understand all the pain point, and that you're and this carrot that you're really looking for is really important to you. I respect that. I am willing to go up to that price so you can go do this, and this, and avoid that. We would just need to have you. We would just have to have you. You can always ask for an ask or something like that. We would just have to close by this date. Would that be something that would make sense? Or whatever it may be, right? It could be like so yes. So if they say yes to the middle offer, there's a reason why you would raise the price point. So it doesn't make your first offer as if it was like nothing. Like, oh well, you were just lowballing me. You know what I mean? And make it hard for you to up the price.
So you're saying even if you don't really need anything else, you just want to capture the sale, basically. You're making it look, obviously you're making it look hard, and then so if you really don't need anything else, though, you would just ask for something that doesn't matter, like would you be able to close on this date? That's what you're saying? Right. Okay, thanks.
Great. And it depends on what it is. Like, can you make sure that those cars in the yard are out of here? You know what I mean? Then I think I can definitely make sure that this thing's ready to go, or do it at this price.
Got it. And then obviously put that in the contract.
Yeah, exactly. But that's it in a nutshell. And I think we should do some some role playing too. I think that'd be good for everyone to do. Maybe I'll change up the calendar and get that in there, because I think that's important too. What other questions do we have, or anything else?
Thank you, Jared. This was really helpful.
Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Tomorrow, I'm excited. I'll make a post about the event tomorrow as well, but it's in the calendar with the address. And yeah, I'm excited. Rachel, are you gonna do your own bonanza like you did before in your the woods?
I didn't look at it doesn't matter, because I couldn't have done it. My dad is so awesome. He's worked for 18 months on a fundraising event for vets in Atlanta, and he asked me a year ago to go, and so we have to leave here tomorrow at 9 a.m. I say I wish I would have looked at the calendar sooner, but I see you're open next weekend, so I'm gonna make it up I'm gonna make
There you go.
myself make it up, but I
Love it,
can't do
love
it
it.
tomorrow. So
Okay. No, no.
thank you
Like,
for asking, though. I appreciate it.
yeah, no, and I really like last time that you were like, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do it with you guys, but it'll be in spirit, but over here. Like,
Yep,
I
and
really-
that's what I really wanted to do. And if I didn't, I have to support my dad because he needs my support, and I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
And plus, he's 80 doing all this. But anyways, so
Well, that-
yes,
there's a reason why we're doing this stuff, right? Because of families. We can't have the time to
Right.
go with our dads and do other stuff, Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So I'm gonna make a goal to. I'll have to make myself go either Friday or Saturday. I will put it into my MMAs for next week. Write it down so I have to do it. So yeah, I'm gonna do it, but not this week. But
Yeah.
I like doing it with y'all too. I'll
Yeah.
mix y'all tomorrow.
Oh, amazing. We will. Today's Friday, guys. So speaking of MMAs, make sure you turn in your MMAs. Make sure you're having your meetings. Whenever you guys decide to do it. If you haven't done it already, then get it in, or at least schedule it for Saturday, or I don't know, whatever makes sense, right? So, yeah, awesome, guys. I appreciate you all. This is a good subject. Thanks, Laura, for bringing that up. And I'll see you guys later. Adios.